This is my first time at this meditation museum. I met Sister Jenna back in LA. We were speaking at an event together, and she's amazing. And everything that they do here is phenomenal, amazing. And so I'm just so happy to be here with you all. So thank you. Um, so today, guys, we're going to be talking about collapses, like life collapses, and how to kind of rebuild after that. And I'm not talking about a serious like dismantling collapse, even though we have those. I went through a bunch. I'm talking about, the micro collapses, those moments that we kind of wake up and we're like, who am I? What do I even, who am I? What am I supposed to do? What is my purpose? So it's kind of a collapse in, just a knowing of who you truly are. So I'm going to go over kind of ways that we can get back to ourselves, kind of get back into our bodies and get back into purpose. And, I'm not sharing this from books, guys. Like, I've literally had a crazy, crazy life where my life has collapsed many times. I've done this many, many times. And so I really teach from lived experience. I'm very, very scientific. I like, to know what's happening with my body, what's happening, just how it's affecting us, right? Because I mean, we just started talking about this mind body connection that we have. And so everything that we think affects our body. And then everything that goes into our body affects the way that we think. Think about it. If we're in pain, then, we're not going to be in the greatest mood because some of our energy is completely taken up by that pain, right? So it's like we have all of these things that get instilled into us and these programs that get instilled into us which kind of create our reality, right? So it's like, how do we get back to baseline so we can sink into who we truly are and then build from that place, right? The place of wholeness. So, um, let me see. I mean, like I said, I didn't live, I didn't, learn this from books. I learned it through lived experience. Let me see here. So, yeah, this is a true fact. Statistically, I should be dead in prison or lost to the streets forever. And this is a true statement. I mean, statistically, if you guys know about the ACEs score, if you have a lot of childhood trauma, then you are kind of like on a road towards, depression, anxiety, trauma, like a traumatized life, right? And so many of us have had childhood trauma. And I'm not talking big or small trauma because there is no such thing as big or small. There just is trauma, right? So it's really trauma is what the nervous system perceives from the event that happened. So if a child, let's say that child falls off a tractor, breaks a bone, that's a huge trauma. Let's say there's another child that falls and, scrapes his knee. If those two children took the physical activity, the dimensional activity into their system the same way, and their nervous systems responded the same way, even though one person broke a bone, the other person just got a little scrape, it still is instilled in the nervous system because what happens, trauma is basically the nervous system trying to complete a response. So if it gets stuck into your system and the nervous system does not have a chance to complete the stress response, then it will get stuck into your physical body as a fractured memory, a charge, and things that will hold you back in your life that you can't even see. This is why I do so much work around trauma and rebuilding the body. So, um, basically, guys, four crashes in my life, big collapses. So, I want to open and tell you guys a little bit about myself so you guys can get a real feeling of who I am and why I teach this work. So, I was abandoned by my mother at a very young age. I was adopted. So, in doing a lot of this work, I re experienced my birth and found out that I never got to see my mother. I never got held by my mother. So, before I even had words to speak, my nervous system and body took in trauma of abandonment. So, that kind of like set me off for the rest of my journey. And at a very young age, I experienced some abuse, and that continued into my teenage years. By the time I was 11, I was trying to sell weed as sage. So I thought sage was weed, and I would put it in bags and try to sell it. I'm like, now as an adult with a 13-year-old son, I'm like, whoa, what was I doing? And then by 12, I was actually smoking weed, like real weed, and I was drinking. By the age of 14, I had moved out of my parents' house, and that's when I really learned how to sell drugs because I moved into an apartment with a boyfriend and his drug addict father. There was no oversight for me at all there. So all we were doing was hustling and partying at college parties. And, that's not great for a 14-year-old to be at college parties. So lots of trauma happened there too. I ended up moving back into my parents' house because my boyfriend at the time kicked me out at age 15 with all my stuff. I'm literally sitting outside, rained on, just getting like, looking around at my stuff. My stuff is all over the ground. I'm like, what am I doing? So for a moment there, boom, I had a moment of awareness. And I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Like, this isn't right. This is something's wrong here. And it was a quick little shimmer of awareness, but I went right back, right? So I kind of lost that glimmer and I moved back in with my parents. And, I was still sneaking out. I was still partying at college parties. And one night I was like, I'm going to skip the party tonight. I'm going to be a good girl. I'm just going to stay home. And so I was sleeping, and about 1 a.m. in the morning, I hear a bang, bang, bang at my door. And so I jump up out of my bed and I'm like looking around and I'm like, what? People are screaming at me. And so there are these two people in suits and they're screaming. They're like, get up, get up, get up, get your stuff, get your stuff. And I was like in shock because I don't know what's happening. I'm like coming from sleep. I'm like, what do you mean? And I'm looking at my parents, and my parents are inside of the doorway, and they're just staring at me, and they're crying a little bit. And I'm like, guys, they're kidnapping me. Save me. Hello, I'm here. Like, hello. And they didn't, of course. They were just standing there looking at me. And yeah, I ended up getting taken to the airport and dropped off into I lived in Detroit at the time, dropped off in the middle of North Carolina in the mountains, in the woods. And I spent the next 60 days in boot camp there. And yeah, I mean, that was extremely traumatizing, especially with my abandonment core wounds, like sending me away, sending me away. My parents were outsourcing my stuff. And so that's what they felt they needed to do is send me to a boot camp. I was cool when I got back home. I was like, yeah, I'm ready to be a good citizen. Like I'm done with the bad life. Like I'm ready to do this. And then they were like, oh, by the way, you're going to boarding school. Pack your stuff. You're gone in a week. And I was like, what? So it reverted me all the way back again because I'm like, all right, I got mad again. So went to boarding school, pretty much got kicked out of there. I was, doing drugs, getting in fights, just bad behavior. By the time I was 19, I started dancing. I was doing a lot of drugs at this time. I was still in the streets. I was still trying to hustle to get by. And, I ended up getting in trouble with the law and getting locked up and actually got some felonies. And, I got out of jail and it wasn't even that moment that changed me, but it was the moment that I went on the run with my boyfriend at the time because the federal and government was going to indict him. So we, had the great idea, let's go on the run. And on the run, I got pregnant. And that was the moment that the shimmer of clarity that I got at that one moment, it expanded because now I have to be responsible for another being. And I'm like, we got to stop. We should probably stop. You should turn yourself in. We have to take care of a child now, right? And so I started to kind of open up awareness at that time. And, it was really the moment that my son's dad had to turn himself in. We were in Pennsylvania. We pulled up to the prison. He got 2.5 years. The prosecutor let us have our son for 3 months. Well, before he had to turn himself in, we drive up and we're getting out the car. I see him grab our son. He puts our son in his arms and we're walking up to this prison. And we walk into this huge room. There's a metal detector. And so we go through the metal detector and I hear a huge bang. And there was a door in the corner and the CO walks out and the door closes behind him. It's like, boom. And it's like everything is happening in slow motion for me right now. I'm like, wow, this is like the craziest thing in the world. I'm sitting here watching my son's dad hold our baby, like our brand new baby. And we were both in freeze. So we didn't really feel our emotions. So we never showed emotion. But in that moment, I could see the tears welling up in his eyes. And so I was looking at that. I was hearing the CO, walked towards us, and the clanking of the handcuffs. And I'm like, I can't, like, I almost fainted. I'm like, "Ooh, this is not my life." And, I saw my son's dad. He kissed our son. He looked at him for a long while. He kissed him in the forehead, gave him to me. And so I held our 3-month-old on my hip and watched my son's dad put his wrist out to get arrested, to go get taken away. And in this moment, I was like, I'm done. My world is empty because I'm empty. So how do I rebuild from this? What is this? What does this even mean? Right? So, I mean, crashes in my life, massive ones. And, I tell you guys all of these things because things happen for a reason. We have programs and conditioning from childhood, basically, that's stapled into our nervous system. And so we will continue the same toxic patterns until we put awareness on where we even got programmed with those patterns. So, I mean, every time that the external collapsed for me, it was really a force of the inside. It was like it was me being forced to step into a different consciousness. So if you guys have ever had crashes in your life where everything has completely collapsed, maybe a marriage ending, maybe a business, that burned down, maybe a friendship that broke, maybe an identity that you don't feel like you fit into anymore. I mean, these are all signals and signs that your consciousness is growing in awareness that it is bigger than what your external reality is. So sometimes what'll happen, God, source, universe, whatever you want to call, will rearrange your life to match your internal state, right? So you will have these collapses, these crashes, because you're not energetically in resonance with what's happening anymore because you're creating this awareness. So, that moment that I saw my son's dad go away, it was like, boom, this moment of awareness. And now I can see further that this reality is not the reality that I want. But before, it was like so narrow minded. I couldn't see anything. So sometimes when the external collapses, it's literally God coming in, wake up, wake up and start to align yourself with the good reality that we all have within us. But it's a mind body connection. And, you can change everything on the outside, but if you haven't changed on the inside, you'll keep recreating that pattern. So, we will always look for familiar pain over unfamiliar gain every single time because literally, how many people have been in relationships, right? So I've attracted the same narcissist in a different skin suit many times because I never learned my lesson. So if you guys dated people that have been kind of the same personality in different skin suits because you haven't learned the lesson, right? So it will continue to show up in your life until you've learned the lesson and changed your energy, your attitude, the way that you feel, the way that you're moving. Then you'll elevate at that point. So we get stuck in loops because our brains and our nervous systems will always look for the familiar. So let's see why we keep repeating the pattern. So we get programmed basically at a very, very young age from, fetus until 7 years old. The brain operates in delta and then theta. When the brain is in theta, we literally soak everything into our subconscious and it becomes our pattern. It becomes our personality. So we have delta, we have theta, we have alpha, we have beta, we have high beta. So everybody here right now, except for a few of you, are in beta. Really, high beta, your thought, your thinking, you're here. When you get into high beta, it's like the anxiousness, you have a little bit of panic energy. That's when your brain is in the high beta wave state. So in alpha, which is the flow state, it's kind of like the doorway to the subconscious. You're able to, be very focused, very present. That's kind of where we're in flow. Now, theta is literally the subconscious, and that is what we are walking around in from 3 to 7 years old. And so our personalities, our habits are forming in that time. So if you grew up in chaos, then chaos became your normal, right? So your nervous system does not crave what's good for you. It literally craves what's familiar. So you will continue your familiar patterns until you put awareness on that. So, the 5-year-old that hears from, their parents or their brother or sister, you're dumb, you're stupid. That 5-year-old will grow into that That 5-year-old becomes that. That belief is installed at the operating system. So that will literally be carried throughout that child's life. So if you grew up in a chaotic environment and you received love chaotically because your parents were always fighting, then your norm will be chaos. You will unconsciously and subconsciously look for chaotic relationships until you realize, hey, I feel really comfortable in this chaos because this is how I received love when I was little. So you will unconsciously keep recreating that in your life. So only 95%, 5% of our thought patterns are conscious, right? Are active. And 95% of our thought patterns are subconscious, unconscious. So you can want the $1 million all day, right? I want the $1 million. I deserve the $1 million. But if your subconscious is running on a program from age 4 that you're not worthy of $1 million, then your subconscious will prevent your consciousness from receiving that money, which is why you have to align the subconscious and the conscious mind from these patterns from childhood. So literally 95% of the time, your 4-year-old, your 5-year-old is in control of you. You're unconsciously making decisions and you're moving towards things that are actually toxic because that's how you were patterned as a child. So, sometimes love equals danger with people, right? Sometimes money equals stress, right? Sometimes being seen equals hurt. Okay, I don't know if you guys have any of these, threads within your consciousness. Sometimes you have to earn your worth, right? Hello, like I'm earning worth, perfectionism. A lot of us have perfectionism because we were praised when things, you're doing so good. You got A's, good job. I love you so much. Well, that can actually turn toxic within us because now we're receiving love because we're performing at a certain level. And that is instilled as a program into us for our lives as adults. And we are literally walking like we have to be perfect because we have to be accepted. We have to be loved. So that's the program running underneath all the things. So we have to learn how to reprogram that. Your nervous system does not seek what's healthy, it seeks what's familiar. What's familiar? Because familiar equals predictable. Predictable equals safe to a body that learned survival before it learned love. So your programming as a child, we are not raised perfectly. Like I said, trauma is not big or small. You could have been raised in a very loving, you know, home. Still, if your mom, maybe she was busy cooking dinner one day and maybe you were crying and you were calling for her and she never came. And that got instilled in your subconscious and consciousness as a program. And so that becomes your baseline. You have no contrast, right? So if you grew up in this chaos, then your baseline is chaos. You don't even know what true love feels like. That's why I feel like there are so many toxic interactions these days because we haven't even learned how to love ourselves when we try to love others. If you don't know how to love yourself, you can't really love another person. So we're all acting through, this old pain, I feel like a lot of the time. So, trauma is not the event. It is literally the pattern in your body that locked it in to survive it. So, I don't like to think about shaming, for our patterns, for our traumas, for our stuff that we've had, because it's literally, we've developed parts of ourselves that protected us, right? That made us be able to take what we handled as children or during the trauma. So, let me see. So basically, this is what happens. Like when something happens, when you go into a stress state, you have a serious set of reactions that happens inside of your physical body. And, this is literally cellular biology. So you have your amygdala, which is, a little tiny little part of your brain. It's in the center of your brain and it's your fear center, basically. And it stores every emotionally intense moment as a threat pattern, basically. And it triggers before your conscious thought. So if you feel like you're in a place and you get triggered because something reminded you subconsciously of an old pattern or an old trauma, then your body and brain will go into fight or flight. And when your body is in fight or flight, you lose your executive thought. We have the prefrontal cortex right here that, we spend most of our time in. This is the most developed part of the brain. We live here pretty much until we get activated, until we get stressed, until we go into a stress response. Then the blood from our prefrontal cortex goes into our hindbrain, floods the amygdala, and we basically are in like shock and fear. And that's how we are thinking. We are not thinking consciously anymore. So by the time your prefrontal cortex says, wait, I'm safe, the reaction has already fired. So this is the problem. It's stimulus response with people. It's the reactions become so big, the triggers become so big that oopsies, we did something that we weren't supposed to do. And we think about it later, like, oh, why did I say that? Or why did I do that? Because you were activated in that moment, you lost your conscious thought. This is literally your body reacting before you, boom, could have a conscious thought there. We also have the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the longest nerve in the body, and it literally runs from here all the way through your organs. So as you are activated, your whole system goes into fight or flight. So as your body goes into fight or flight, now your brain cannot get the correct signals from your system. That's why I tell people when you eat, when you sit down and eat, just a little tip for everybody, take some breaths before you eat, really sit in resonance with your food, put your phone away, and then sit there and like absorb the food, because so many of us are so sped up these days that we don't even sit and eat our meals. We're like working, we're talking, we're eating as we're going. Like you're not going to absorb any of the nutrition because your body is activated. You are in fight or flight. Your gut is not functioning for nutrition at that point. Your gut is shut down so that your blood goes to your extremities so you can run and get away from the lion, right? This is literally how our nervous systems, how our bodies are programmed. So take a conscious moment before you eat and eat the food, because did you guys know that when you look at a plate of food, your stomach is already creating the acids to be able to break down that specific food. But if you're not even thinking about the food you're not even going to be able to absorb that food. So a lot of problems. The vagus nerve too, there's three different parts of the vagus nerve. When the vagus nerve is in ventral vagal, you are in a very communal state of mind, right? You're very social. Everything is good. When you are in dorsal vagal, then you go into shutdown mode. You disassociate. Some people even faint at this time. Or you go into activation of the vagus nerve, and that's when you're in fight or flight. So things like humming or splashing cold water on your face, or, I do the humming thing, really helps to activate the vagus nerve to bring you out of that stress response so you can come back into yourself to create the space for intentional action. Then we also have the HPA axis, which is your hypothalamus, pituitary, and your adrenals. And these organs together will flood your body with adrenaline and cortisol and all of these stress hormones, right? And chronic activation of that creates anxiety. It creates all type of, autoimmune issues, right? If you have consistent stress hormones that are dropping into your body, you're going to have tons of inflammation inside of your system. I mean, it leads to autoimmune conditions. It leads to weight gain, digestive collapse. So many different things it leads to. So it's so important for us to get back into our bodies and get out of fight or flight. And I think after the crazy pandemic and just, the Western culture, everything is so sped up all the time. It's like we're expected to go, go, go. I mean, this is literally hustle culture here. It's like I'm asleep when I die. That's like the worst thing you can do for your body. Sleep is baseline health. And so we're pushed and pushed and pushed to just be these machines, which we are not. We are beautiful souls that are here to spread creativity, but we have gotten that stolen from us because of this fast-paced type of world, right? Especially in Western culture, especially in America. So, it's really, really hard to slow down, but slowing down creates the space to actually bring the life that you truly want towards you. So the roadmap back. So this is what I came up with. So guys, I mean, I have been doing modalities since I was 19. I didn't tell this story, but I was on this big drug binge at 19 and got out of it. I was always a very smart person. And when I got out of that, I couldn't even complete sentences. My brain was so fogged. Everything was so, I couldn't even think. And I went to a friend and my friend was like, hey, you want a brain train? And I was like, please fix me, anything. So I did it. So at 19, I experienced neurofeedback for the first time, and it gave me contrast to see that there is something that can create clarity in my life, which I never had. Now, those new neural pathways pruned away because I went right back into Hollywood. I was a model actress, and right back to the drugs and the parties. So all of the new neural connections that I had gotten from neurofeedback was like, bye, and I went right back into the toxicity. So um, at 26, when I had that moment as my son's dad was getting taken away, um, boom, that came into my head. I was like, oh, there's a thing that can help me. Like there's a thing, neurofeedback. I remembered that. So at 26, I dove into this work in a deep way and I started trying to heal in every way that I could. I experienced since I was 26 and I'm 39 now, over 100 different holistic modalities to try to fix my mind, body, soul. I mean, I've traveled around to many countries, all over countries and everywhere, trying to figure out what I was missing. And so through all of these years of the work and experimenting and trying, this is what I came up with. And it's the order of this because we do have something like a mind body connection. How to rid yourself of trauma, how to rid yourself of triggers, how to live a very intentional, thought life where you're not reacting from old stimulus, where you're not feeling out of your body, where you literally can go through a day without an overwhelming trigger to make you feel like, all of us are so stuck with emotions right now that when a trigger hits us, it's so hard for us to control ourselves. And that's why there's so much toxicity in the world. I mean, it's manifesting all over the planet. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to regulate your nervous system. You have to regulate your nervous system because if you do not do that first, none of the other steps will work, right? So if you try to rewire your identity, let's say you grew up with a mom that forced you to perform, right? So now you have this massive perfectionism, and it's like it's really messing with your life because now you're just so anxious about doing the right thing all the time. Now, if you try to go into your nervous system and tell yourself, no, I don't need to be a perfectionist, that's stupid, but yet your nervous system is still on fire and you're still freaking out, then that is never going to stick inside of your body. You have to be in a calm state for you to be able to rewire, for you to even be able to see where these things stem from. So that's why it's so important first to regulate the nervous system. Number two, reflect. So you have to be able to take radical accountability for everything in your life. And that's triggering for some people to hear me say that. I mean, the abuse that I, received when I was a very young child, it's not that I'm not taking fault of the abuse, but I'm taking accountability for my life, right? That was the thing that happened to be able to give me more awareness so I can be here now. So instead of dipping into victim mentality, like, how dare that person? They ruined my life. They caused all this trauma. And I made so many bad decisions because of that. That's a victim mentality. You are releasing your power. Your life is now because of that person. You are not consciously creating your life in that time. So it's like, no, I create my life. That happened for a purpose and a reason. I'm good. And I'm going to continue to grow. And even last year, I don't know if any of you know me, but I was married to pretty big influencer. And we had a very huge, embarrassing divorce in front of all of the public. And my whole life collapsed in a second. Boom. I was like, flying private jets. I had guards, I had cars, I had mansions, whatever. All of a sudden, boom, it was gone in a day. And I had nothing. And so instead of falling into victim mentality, screw him, screw everybody, they all abandoned me. My life sucks. That's how I felt. For sure. That's how I felt. But in knowing, this process, and knowing that the emotion lives in your body for 90 seconds. And then after that, it's your mind telling your body a story to keep it there. Number one. Number two, the reticular activating system. So we have a bundle of nerves at our brainstem that filters reality down to what you think life is, right? So your observance, your perception of reality. So if you think that life is hard, then your reticular activating system will collapse your reality to see obstacles everywhere. I knew this. I knew that neurons that fire together wire together. So I knew that if I had these thoughts of screw him, I hate him, he's awful, so many times, and I let that just spin in my mind, that would become hardwired into me, right? So, in knowing all of these different things, after my life was dismantled, literally, I literally lost everything in in an hour. I had no home. I had no car. It was the craziest thing I've ever been through in my life. And in those moments, it was like I'm good. Now I didn't believe it. I faked it until I made it. I didn't believe that everything was good. I'm like, I'm good. It's totally fine. Was not fine at all. But I kept telling myself that. I kept breaking the pattern as soon as I would feel a victim. I'd let myself crash out on the ground. I'd be crying, screaming, like, ah. But then I would break that pattern. Boom, run outside. And I would run outside literally to the grass and just ground myself to the earth and, let the sun hit my face, connect with the trees and just look and become so present that I wasn't focusing on everything that everybody was doing to me, right? So it's literally the appreciation. And in doing this over and over and over and over and over and over, I was able to create a very beautiful life very quickly. I mean, I lost everything last year, April 10th last year, I lost everything. And by September, I was speaking in Bali at a huge summit. So I brought it all back because I kept interrupting those patterns that our bodies, our egos, our conditioning, our systems within ourselves want to go towards, screw him. This is unfair. This sucks. That's what we want to do because it feels comfortable, because now it takes the blame off of us and puts it on everybody else. So the hardest thing to do is take radical accountability. The hardest. Oh man, I didn't know I was doing that. um, and then let's get into reprogram the subconscious. So after you are able to regulate the nervous system and you're able to take radical accountability for everything that's going on in your life, now it's time to reprogram, right? So when you're reflecting on yourself, I always tell people, when is the first time you feel that, right? So if you feel triggered, let's say my boyfriend walks away from me and now I'm super triggered, right? Because I have abandonment wounds. So I'm like, instead of putting myself in the moment, I'm trying to go into my body and see, I feel this in my gut. Okay, this is a familiar feeling. When did I first feel this feeling in my gut of abandonment? And I would try to trace it all the way back to the first time that you felt that within your system. And in knowing that and sinking into that energy and feeling those emotions at that moment, your body and nervous system and brain will let it go. You'll finally process that root, which has gotten strings all the way through your life. So if you're able to find the root and really heal at a somatic level at the root place, then that reprograms so many different things that you wouldn't even understand in your life. There's many different ways to reprogram the subconscious, and I'll get into them in a second. And then number 4, embody. So like I said, I experienced neurofeedback back when I was 19 years old. And I had all these new neural pathways, all these new neural connections. I'm a different person. I'm good, right? But I went straight back into my old environment with the drugs, with the craziness, with the partying. So all of those new neural pathways, they pruned away. So it's like you have to embody this new identity, because what is going to happen after these steps is, you're still going to want to sink back. This is the hard part of this work, is like you always have to stay conscious. You have to stay aware. You have to stay checking yourself. You have to stay doing these 4 things, or else you'll revert back. This is like life's work. This is not just a 1-2 off. This is literally a practice that you put into practice every single day of your life. All right, so regulate. Here are some things to be able to regulate your nervous system. I mean, walking in nature. I mean, they've done multiple studies that when you walk in nature, your brain waves, remember I was saying high beta is like that anxious thought process. Well, it will literally, your brain waves will sink back down and you'll go into alpha. When you're connected and present in nature, your brain waves are in alpha, okay? I mean, your body regulates, your vagal tone is good, everything feels normal because you're out of that activation. Nature healed me from my divorce. It did. I was doing dance party walks in nature, and that is literally what got me through all the hardness. Like I was saying, sun on your face, so important. I mean, so many people are deficient in vitamin D because I don't think that the medical community has really given us the correct amounts of vitamins, minerals that we are supposed to take, especially they don't tell you that, a melanated person needs way more vitamin D than a non-melanated person. So I believe that so many different things have to do with us not having enough resources in our body to feel good, to be able to behave appropriately, right? I mean, if you're deficient in vitamin D, you're going to feel depressed. If you're deficient in magnesium, you're going to feel anxious, right? So many different things can add to the way that you feel. Bare feet on the earth also regulates your nervous system. This is literal science at this point. Grounding. So there's an abundance of negative ions all over the earth's surface, and our bodies need those ions to function properly. So every single cell in your body needs electrons. So by grounding to the earth, you literally will feel your stress leave your body because the cortisol is lowering, the adrenaline is lowering. Your body is responding to those negative ions being sucked up into your body. It is impossible to be chronically inflamed when you're grounded. So I have grounding mats, I have grounding patches. I mean, I'm grounded pretty much all of every day, and I've been doing this work for quite a while, and I've been talking about this for quite a while. So I challenge anyone in here who has not grounded before. 20, 30 minutes a day. It's free. Literally touch your hands and your bare feet to the grass every day and see how it changes your life. Grounding completely changed my life. I mean, I was a gymnast for a really long time. I don't have any type of pain in my body. Whenever you go on trips and you go to other countries, other parts of the world, if you ground bare feet, bare hands to the earth's surface of wherever you're at, then your circadian rhythm will sync to that place in the earth and you will not have jet lag. So that is how I am able to travel. I mean, I go everywhere all the time. I'm so many different places. I'm always finding a patch of grass, or I'm going into an ocean. I'm going to dive in there because ocean is really good to ground yourself too. And then orienting. So orienting is like, when you feel very activated, you're not present. You're either living in, the future or the past. So orienting is literally sitting and looking around. What can I see? What can I smell? What can I taste? What can I touch? And really just orienting your place to the present moment brings you out of activation and into presence. So it's just kind of paying attention and looking and observing of everything and then feeling your body. How do I feel? That will bring you out of activation. Reflection. So, when I talk about reflection, I think it's really important to be able to get to the root when you're reflecting. Because if you're just reflecting on, the terrible, like if I was just to reflect my divorce, right? And I'm just, thinking about the day that everything happened and it all got crazy, that's not really serving any good. What I wanted to reflect on when it came to the divorce is how did I create this abandonment in my life? Why is my abandonment wound still peeking its head up, creating this reality for me to learn, my nervous system to learn that I'm actually, worthy. Why is this continuing to happen? So it's, finding the root. So, journaling has been incredible for me. Sometimes when you write, you'll write down things that you won't even, realize that you wrote. Also, when going back and reflecting on your journals, incredible information that you don't even realize you wrote, which is wild because I was looking in a couple of my journals and, there was red flag after red flag after red flag after red flag for years that I wrote about. Okay. And I, conscious mind, I just know this is the greatest thing ever. In my journal, told the truth. So yeah, really, really powerful. Parts work. I love parts work. I'm not sure if you guys know what this is, but it's basically internal family systems. So it's you create these identities through trauma, right? So you have this protector, you have this rebel, you have this anxious person, you have this person who's in fear. Those personalities all live within us. Every single one of us, we all have these different parts of ourselves. The problem is we shame ourselves for the parts that we have. Oh my God, I was angry. It was just so stupid. Why would I do that? Like, these are all protector parts of ourselves that are, developed for a reason to protect us. So instead of pushing away all these parts of yourself saying, oh, I hate when I'm anxious. I hate when I'm so scared. I'm so scared. It's so stupid. Instead of doing that, it's accepting all of those parts of yourself. Oh, I'm so scared because, something happened to me and I'm going to hold space for my scared part. I'm going to honor the scared part within myself. My angry part. I mean, I had massive amounts of anger inside of my little body from all the crazy stuff I went through in my life. And it's like, it would scare me. My anger scared me. That's how mad I would get. So I would always try to push it away. But the more you try to resist, the harder it comes back towards you. So if you're able to just accept, when I got angry now, it's like, put my hand on my heart. I am so angry, and I see that my angry part is forward right now. I am going to just hold this anger part of myself as all of my other parts sit and hold space for that part of me. So it's like that, catch yourself in the moment of awareness to be able to work with yourself and stop shaming yourself. I know a lot of us here, we would get locked up if we were to speak to other people how we speak to ourselves. Am I right? I mean, we kind of talk to ourselves like crap. Okay. I mean, we all do this. And that was really hard for me to break out of, as like the perfectionist and all the other things. So what I started to do was I actually got a picture of myself when I was 3 years old, and I stared at it. And then I was like, okay, in my mind's eye, when I would be going crazy, like, you're a dumbass, oh, you're dumb, you're just, when I would go into this, it'd be like, instead of allowing myself to just go hard on myself, I would sit my 3-year-old in a chair in front of me in my mind's eye. And I would be like, what would I say to this 3-year-old right now? Because that's really the part of me that's freaking out right now, is that child that never got the attention or what they needed in the moment as they started to feel these emotions. So what does that child need from me right now? So instead, when I start to go, I'm like, nope, put the child in front of me. Now, what do you need? How can I help you? Right? So it's kind of catching ourselves in these moments of turning on ourselves and allowing us to be who we truly are and accepting every single part of ourselves. So you move the trauma from the cage to the file cabinet, right? So now it's not something that you're, locking up. It's not something that you're pushing away. It's not something that you're just turning your back on, because all of that creates ripples in your current reality that you can't even see. So if you learn to accept all of yourselves, all the trauma, all the parts, and you file those away and just understand, yes, this is a part of me. This is a part of my life. This is exactly why I'm who I am today. This is awesome. Then everything starts to come together. All right. And then reprogram. So the subconscious, I always talk about reprogramming the subconscious. And the subconscious only speaks one language, which is the body. The body is the subconscious. This is where we get our intuition. I always talk about like an onion, right? So we are born as the onion, the center of the onion, super connected, super innocent. We are, in the line. And then boom, mom doesn't answer our cry. So we build a little wall, a little shield. Boom. Something happens. Our brother gets mad at us and yells at us. Boom. We build another wall. We get a boyfriend. He breaks our heart. Boom. We build a big wall for that one. That one really hurt. Teenage, we get some abuse. Boom. We create huge walls, huge shields, because no one's about to hurt me ever again. So we literally create this onion throughout our lives, and we build these masks and we build these shields. And by the time that, we're 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, we're so aligned with the outskirts of the onion that we don't even know who we are anymore. So we have to be able to peel back these layers. And that is this type of work. That is the subconscious work, peeling back the layers so you can get back to who you truly are. So one of my favorites to be able to work with the subconscious is EFT. That's emotional freedom technique, that is tapping. And, there's many, many, many different ways you can use this. And there's multiple, clinical research studies on the effectiveness of tapping. This drops cortisol in one session. So, I mean, we're going to go through some tapping exercises together in a little bit. But, I would use this even when I was a chef. I was a pastry chef for a while. And, it's a very abusive career. They yell, scream, throw knives and pans at your head. It's crazy. And I would get really triggered because I'm like, why are people throwing pans at me? So I would be really triggered and I would want to react. But as I needed the job, so I couldn't just go crazy on my boss. So I would excuse myself and I would go to the bathroom, and I would be in the bathroom. I really, really want to cuss this boss out, but I'm not going to do it. I really want to do that, but I'm not going to, because I'm very strong. And the anger is just probably in me. And so I would just tap my way into feeling regulated. And then I'd come right back into work and I'd be fine. So you can bring yourself out of a stress state through tapping, and you can go even as deep as really big traumas in your life. I have worked around some of my deepest traumas in the mirror with EFT. Super powerful because what EFT does is you're not only using these points on your body, which are very energetic points that go all the way through your body, you're using your affirmations. So, like, while you're opening up these energetic gates of your body, you are saying the things that you want to instill into your subconscious. So, not only are you kind of removing the charge of the traumatic memory if you're working on that while tapping, but you're able to put more into your body, into your system. And that can be like the subconscious program. So you could tap your way into, I deserve $1 million. I bet if someone were to tap enough, they would probably be able to manifest that money, because it's like you have to be able to break through your subconscious to align mind, body, and soul, because whatever is in the mind can and is created in reality. The only thing that holds us back is our subconscious programming that doesn't align with the want, with our conscious want. So EFT helps you to align all three. Um, and then the breath. So there's something called a physiological sigh. So this is 2 sniffs in, 1 long breath out, and that really regulates your nervous system. So it's basically, and if you guys want to try it, I promise you, get you very, very nice and calm. It will drop your stress response. And then TRE, so trauma release exercise, incredibly powerful. So I used to work with a doctor. His name was Dr. David Berselli, and he was in a war, and there was like bombs going off. He was in a bomb shelter, and he was sitting there, and he saw a mother across from him with 2 babies on her lap, and then he saw adults all in this bomb shelter. And as the bombs were hitting, boom, he could see, as the bombs were getting closer and louder, he could see the boys sitting on the mother's lap, and they were shaking uncontrollably. And then he started to look around the bomb shelter, and he's like, no one else is shaking. All these adults are, they're locked. They're like, so babies were shaking, adults were locked. So he really went into research about why that is. So if you notice in nature, animals in the wild, they don't carry PTSD. I'm saying in the wild, not ones that we, kind of bring into our homes. Yes, they could have PTSD, but animals in the wild do not. Why? Because our bodies, when we go through a stressful moment, our bodies need to get rid of that extra energy in us. It gets locked into us, right? And we have years and years and years of our body's natural response of shaking that we've suppressed because it's not appropriate, right? We're not going to be like, oh my God, I'm so scared. Everyone will look at you like you're crazy. So it's like, we're so strong. That's really doing a disservice to our bodies. So all of that energy gets locked into our system. So there is something called trauma release exercise. And basically what it does is you move in different positions to exhaust your psoas muscle, which tightens every single time you go in fight or flight. So you activate your psoas, and then you go into different positions on the ground, and your body will start to tremor and shake, and it will shake off old stuff. And it is so incredibly powerful. I have literally released loads of energy within my system through trauma release. And I mean, so much so that I noticed, I used to have terrible road rage. Terrible. It was scary to be on the road with me. I'm scared of myself. But after TRE and doing a lot of sessions of TRE, the emotional charge, the anger, all of the uncontrollable feelings in me started to lower. So now I'm not as reactive. I can drive down the street, someone could cut me off. I'm like, totally fine. They're probably in a hurry. No reaction. And that's because of all of this work. I've gotten all of this excess charge out of my system through stuff like trauma release, through stuff like cranial sacral is also really good, because you'll have big somato emotional releases through that work. So I don't know if you guys know about cranial sacral, but I would absolutely look into it if you ever feel like you want to work on some of this stuff. And then havening. Havening is a little bit new. I just learned about this one in the past probably 3 years. Basically what havening is you want to wake up your senses and come back into presence. So this actually increases the delta waves in your brain, so it brings you into a very calm state, and it weakens your traumatic memory at literally the synapse. At the moment, boom, it wires and fires in your mind. So basically what havening, I'll show you guys. So like this, like you take your arms and cross, and like you stroke down. So that's an example of havening. And this will really calm you. If you ever feel like really activated, sometimes before I go on stage, or sometimes before I'm like having to do something, I'm in the back and I'm havening because it will calm you. I can feel it calming me right now. So things like this are super simple ways when you're activated to be able to move from that activated state. So you're able to actually make a really good decision. Okay. So let's just do this together for fun, guys. We'll do 3 physiological sighs, which is the, and then we'll do 1 round of tapping. Some of you guys may not have done tapping before, but I promise it's awesome. So something that you might want to learn. And I will put this. I just want to see how you guys feel after doing this because, like, take a quick body scan, like, close your eyes and kind of feel how your body feels right now. Really get in tune with how you feel. Okay. All right. Now let's do the physiological sigh 3 times. So it's in twice through the mouth, out through the mouth, in twice through the nose, out through the mouth. So, okay. Now I want you guys to go into your mind and just see something in your mind that you're feeling a little bit unworthy about, you have a little bit of anxiousness about, and I want you guys to start to tap on the top of your head. So you're tapping on on the top of your head, and you're kind of thinking about, what you're feeling. Now I want you to go to the top of your eyebrow. Tap the top of your eyebrow. You can do both sides. You can do one side, however you feel. Okay. Tap, tap, tap. Even though I'm feeling very anxious about, let's say we have a meeting, I have a meeting, and I'm feeling very anxious about it. I go to the bottom of your eyes. Even though I'm feeling very anxious about this meeting I'm having, whatever issue it is that you guys are having, I still completely love and accept myself. Go under your nose. I completely love and accept myself. So even though I have anxiety about what I'm about to do right below your chin, right below your lip, even though I have anxiety about this, I still completely love and accept myself. And then I take my fist and I go on both collarbones. Man, even though I have so much anxiety about this thing, I still completely love and accept myself. And I know that I'm about to kill this beating. It's going to be amazing. And then go underneath your arm, even though this is really anxious for me. It's okay. I got this. I really got this because I am strong. My name is Elisabeth Carson and I am so strong. Now your karate chop point. Even though I'm super nervous about this meeting, my name is Elisabeth Carson. I'm going to do amazing at this meeting, and I love and fully accept myself. And then you just keep going through your body and thinking about, your setup statement. Think about, how you feel. Think about what you want to put into your subconscious. Go through the tapping. All right, we'll do one more time. Even though I'm super nervous about this meeting, I still completely love and accept myself. And I know that I'm worthy. And I am worthy of true love. I am worthy of existence. I am worthy. My name is Elisabeth Carson, and I am so worthy. All right. Now, I want you guys to close your eyes and do another body scan and see what has changed within you. See, I can feel the change within myself. My heart was beating a little fast. Every time I do these, my heart beats really fast. And so I feel that the heart has calmed down and I feel a little bit more embodied, like I'm more inside of my body. And I feel way more peace than I did before. Do you guys feel it? You feel the change in your nervous system? Did you feel how you were a little activated before and how it kind of calmed you down just a tad, even if it was just a tiny little minute bit? That is the power of this work. It's literally that simple. It's really, it's not hard. It's the moment of awareness and the choice. I'm going to make a choice to reprogram myself in this moment. That's how you're going to keep creating this amazing future. All right. So step 4 is the embodiment. Okay. So a really good piece of advice that I got from, I think it was Mel Robbins, mirror high fives. So, through our life, we have gotten high fives, right? And high fives are a signal of like celebration, a good job, right? So that is That is literally inside of our nervous system, and like subconscious is a pattern. And so when you guys are in the morning, I promise this makes a huge difference. At least it did for me. I mean, some things, don't work for everybody, but this one did a really good job. So every morning when I go to brush my teeth, I'm in the mirror and I'm like, girl, you got this today. Give yourself a high five. Look yourself in the eyes and give yourself a high five. Like, yes, you got this. You're about to kill it today. Woohoo. And then at night, before you go to sleep, when you brush your teeth, before you go to sleep, girl, you killed it. High five. Seriously, because every time you do this, I was just having a conversation with somebody about this. We, you know, we tend to get pulled away from our natural state, just naturally because of society, because of systems that are kind of, jacked up. And because we've never been taught how to deal with our stuff and our trauma. So we don't get taught this stuff. So we get so far away from who we are. That's why a lot of us wake up. We don't know what our purpose is. We don't know who we are. We don't even know what we like because society says we're supposed to take care of everybody but us, right? So every moment that you're able to catch yourself in a moment of, anxiousness, of a moment of activation, and you're able to give back yourself what you need in that moment to calm yourself down instead of just pushing through it to the next thing, your body will start to trust itself again. You will start to sink back into yourself. I mean, for my whole life, I was chasing a big gaping hole in my stomach that I found out was really just me, self love. I had never loved myself. So as I kept doing things like this, you're pouring your love back into yourself and you're connecting back with your body, and your body is starting to trust itself again. Because so many times we don't listen. We don't listen to the body. We don't listen. We just keep on pushing through the anxiety. We keep on pushing through the fear. Oh, it's going to be okay. Oh, he'll change. She'll change. All of these things, we don't honor the truth a lot of the time. Probably 95% of the time, we're not honoring ourselves. So when you're able to do things like a mirror high five, you're honoring yourself. You're filling your body back up with that love that you need. Okay. Free movement and dance. This is also amazing because as you're dancing, I mean, dancing is ancient. It's an ancient practice. And dancing will completely pull you out of like the crash outs. And that's what I was doing. It was so crazy. My son probably thinks I'm like crazy as hell because I was on the ground, crashing out, crying, crashing out. Ah. But then I'd like force myself to stand up, turn on my speaker, blast this crazy music, and I'd just be like, dancing around my house, like looking crazy. But hey, this is literally what I needed to do because it shifted me out of the state of victim when I was like, I hate everything, it sucks, to movement. Now I'm not only, sitting, locking that energy in my system, I'm letting it flow through my body by dance, by movement. So you're moving that energy around so it doesn't get locked and stuck. You're getting present, you're enjoying yourself, and you're listening to the beats, so it's bringing your mood up and it's shifting your nervous system in the moment of collapse. And that's what you want to try to train. Get out of that automatic response by interrupting the pattern. Visualization. So really cool. I've visualized pretty much my entire life. I've been able to really manifest all the things that I've wanted since I was younger. I mean, as I was a teenager, I really wanted a Bentley. So I would like see myself visualizing. I would see myself driving in this Bentley. I would smell the leather and feel the placard on the wheel and like stick my head out the window, like get out in my suit. And I'm literally, I am in my head feeling these things. I'm smelling, I'm seeing, I'm tasting, I'm embodying this vision, right? And a couple of years later, I got a Bentley. So, I mean, after my divorce, I lost everything. I had no connections, nothing. I had no connections, and the world was turning against me, to be honest. So I didn't feel even comfortable to reach out to anyone to get work. And I'm like, how am I gonna continue my life's work? What am I gonna do? I have no connections. I want to speak. I need to share this story. I need to share my work. And I was like, I just don't know what I'm gonna do. How am I gonna do this? So I started to visualize on my dance party walks, is what I called them. I'd be literally walking down the street with my headphones, like dancing, and I would be visualizing what I wanted to create for my life. Because after my last dismantle, I had a free foundation to build off of, so I could create whatever I wanted to create. And I started to see myself on these stages. I started to give high fives to the people like, yeah. I used to hear the crowd and the energy and the wind on my face as I'd be walking. So much detail, so much emotion. I would be crying on my dance party walks because I'm like, how did I create this? I literally created the moment of stage before I got there. And I was living in that moment every freaking day, every day. I was holding on to that vision. And within 4 to 6 weeks, I got a call to go speak in Bali. And then I got another call from random people, like not people that I knew or was connected with. Like these are completely people outside of my circle that I used to run in. I got a call to speak in Dubai. I got a call to speak in Mexico. I got a call, all of these different calls because I embodied that. Because here's the thing, I don't believe that God, source, universe will place a desire inside of your consciousness that is not meant for you. So if you have a burning desire within you, then hold on to that. Create it in your mind. Visualize it so deeply. Feel it so deeply in every single sense in your body, and you will create that. I mean, there's not specific things in my consciousness because it's not in my life plan. So I don't have those desires. So if you have a desire, you can get it. You can get whatever you want to create. This is the thing that they don't, in my belief system, I think that there's a group of people that kind of don't want us to know our power. Because the minute that we know our power, we're not going to be, following the systems anymore. We're literally going to be walking this plane and just spreading our essence and creativity all over the world. And it's just going to be a place of pure love, right? Not control, not fear, not anxiousness, not wars, not fighting each other over skin color or over, sexual orientation or anything at that point. Because at that point, we fully accept ourselves because we know our true power. So when you can embody that and when you can bring yourself back to that, you can create the most beautiful, amazing life for yourself. And nobody can give me excuses. Nobody, because I've came from the depths of the bottom. Like I've sat in jail cells with killers before, but yet I've sat next to governors and talked to them about how there's a water issue in Detroit. We need to get some bills passed to be able to get new water systems. I've been at the depths of the bottom and traveled the world at some of the biggest stages ever with some of the biggest people ever, you know, and it's all created through this and the work. That's how we create our reality. You have to get rid of the programs that don't serve your highest good, and you have to be able to, you know, work through that stuff and embody your new identity of what you want to be. And then from there, I don't lead my life anymore. I am not guessing. I'm not leading. I'm not an ego. I am here, specifically here, purely because spirit was pulling me here. I mean, I don't know anymore. In my last relationship, there was no foundational root of something that was bigger than us. We were focused on our ego. That was the foundation of my marriage. So we had nothing greater than ourselves to focus on or to lean back into or to fall back into. And that is a very shaky foundation to be in. And so when you're able to align, when you're able to really serve yourself, take the space, take the silence, then God will start showing up in your life in ways that I can't even, it's incredible. Magic shows up in my life every day. I mean, the reason I'm here is magic. It was spirit pulled me here. I look for signs and signals on my walks now. God, please show me the signs and signals so I can step into my highest timeline, so I can serve the most people in the best way that I can. Please guide me because I don't know the way. You know the way. And I want all of these signs and signals to keep helping me to move forward on my journey. That is it. So, I mean, I talked about the collapse at the beginning. There's small collapses within us. There's massive collapses that happen with us. But the collapse is not the catastrophe. It is literally the clearing of what was no longer serving you, right? Anytime you feel that detriment, every time you feel that negativity, that feeling within you, that's only a signal that you're not living in alignment with who you're supposed to be in this moment. So I want you guys to, take some deep breaths and put your hand on your heart. Here's the thing. Whenever I get out of resonance during the day, I try to just take my consciousness and I sink it back into my heart. So sometimes I just put my hand on my heart and I try to just sink into my heart and feel how my heart feels. Because for so many years, my heart was closed. For so many years, I didn't have anyone. I didn't accept myself. So I turned my heart off and it was so cold. So I want you guys to just sink into your heart. And maybe you're in that state. Maybe your heart is cold. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's really warm. I mean, if you feel heavy there, give yourself what you need inside of your heart. Breathe in through your nose, blow it out through your mouth. Stay in your heart space. And I want you guys to embody and visualize that perfect person that you know you are. And kind of just see what that person is doing. How is that person standing? What do they smell like? How do they talk? What are they wearing? How are they moving through their day? How are they interacting with the people they're interacting with? What are they saying? How are their shoulders? Are their shoulders up? Is their head up? I want you to see this image of your highest self that you know is there in front of you, and breathe into that image and bring that image towards you and kind of marry the two and sink that image into your heart, because that is you. You are that person. You just needed to be reminded. And repeat after me. I am the architect. I am the author. And I am the powerful creator of my reality. Awesome. All right, you can open your eyes. I hope that you guys were able to take that perfect being in that we all are, by the way. That is all us. If you guys want to tap in with me, Elisabeth Carson, you can find me Elisabeth Unlimited. I have a podcast. I do a couple things here and there. And yeah,